Welcome to the very first episode of, well, we don't actually have a name for this yet, so I'll take some of your suggestions. Right now, in the running, we have...
Here's the Deal with Adam and Neil.
Ooh, I like that. And Hard to Fathom with Neil and Adam. But, in the meantime, we are going to connect with all of you since most of us are at home for the next few weeks. So thanks for joining us in this first take, and if we make it to 100 episodes, I think we should film that while skydiving. What about you? Have you ever skydived?
I've never had a desire to sky. I have bungee jumped in China. I was strapped in with a Velcro strap around each ankle, and it was terrifying. So I vouched at that point to never skydive.
Oh.
But we might do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I say we do it and just film us with the GoPro.
Yeah.
Well, to get us started this morning, Neil, you love to hunt, so how about you tell us, what do you do when you're hunting while you're waiting? Because as I imagine this, it seems like you could get bored quickly.
That's true. That's a good question because there's a lot of time. You know, you're waiting for the deer to come, and sometimes you sit there for hours and do nothing. So when I was little, I used to whittle things on a stick. But the problem is, I don't know how to whittle, so I would always just make a spear out of a stick.
That's the default.
Yeah. So I have lots of spears scattered throughout Greene County in the woods. So if you find one, I probably made it. But now, actually, I use that time in a serious note to I spend a lot of time with God while I'm in the woods. So lately, over the last couple of years, I've really enjoyed bringing people along and people who've never hunted before and teaching them the trade, and during those times when there's no animals moving around, you kind of whisper to each other and you can have some really good fellowship with other people. But when I'm by myself, it's a lot of time with God. It's a lot of time just thinking about strategy. If I'm bow hunting, I'm constantly arranging trees, figuring out the distances.
I can see that.
Yeah. So you know, there's a lot of time where, I'm a guy, so my mind sort of goes blank sometimes. So I've had stints where I'm sitting there and then I'm like, wow, that was 20 minutes of thinking about nothing. So
nice. Do you eat different food? We have Pop-Tarts sitting over there, but I'm imagining you can't open a Pop-Tart bag because it's all noisy.
Here's my strategy. I always think in terms of what can I eat that the deer also like the smell of. So peanut butter, whatever it is, things that are Fig Newtons, things that kind of have more of a natural scent. So things I don't know, a Snickers or a
Starburst.
Yeah, those things are a little unnatural and they carry a heavy scent. So I always try to think, what is a deer gonna like? And at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters. But
it's true. They're gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna shoot them.
That's true. Then I'm gonna eat them as jerky on the next hunt.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, I have a question for you. So, we're in this season of the coronavirus. Yeah. And there's one state that has not had any outbreaks yet. And it just happens to be West Virginia, which is where you're from. So I have my own speculations, but why do you think West Virginia does not have coronavirus?
That is the question at this point, and I think it's pretty obvious to anyone who's over there that there's a certain immunity that exists because they love to eat pepperoni rolls and to listen to John Denver's Country Roads every day. So I say just blast it from the state line and keep that virus out.
Okay.
Yeah. I was listening to it earlier today.
Yeah.
Made me tear up a little bit. Yeah. I always remember being in the stadium in Morgantown after WVU would win a game and they'd play Country Roads and everyone puts their arms on each other and sways like a wave.
So you're saying it builds an emotional separation from viruses?
It must. At least that one. Yeah. At this point. Yeah.
Nice.
So there we go, man. So with this virus that's happening right now, we have this surreal scenario in which there's a toilet paper shortage. And I think that the true question in all this is, what is your favorite toilet paper brand?
That's a really good question. That's deep. The thing is, okay, I got to backtrack a little bit to growing up. I grew up with some bougie toilet paper. So it was like, Charmin, Extra Plush, just something very comfortable. And then, you go to like a grocery store or, like you're driving on the interstate and you stop at one of those rest stops, and the toilet paper, it's like sandpaper.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy. So I usually try to wait until I'm home to take care of business. Well, when I got married, my wife was one of those that grew up in a home that used this like they bought the cheap toilet paper to save money. So I had to talk with my wife, and I said, listen, there are not a lot of things. Like, I'm an outdoorsy guy. I can go camp on a cot or on the ground in the middle of nowhere for a week. But there's one thing that I will not settle on, and that's not having good toilet paper. So I do like the like bougiest you can, quilted, Extra Plush, Charmin. You get it at Costco and like bulk brands. So we've been buying in bulk for like years, and then all of a sudden there's a virus and everyone buys up all the bulk items. So we're
Yes, they do.
yeah. So anyway,
So you're in trouble.
yeah, yeah. What about you? Are you guys
I'm more of a
like
bidet person.
a bidet person? Yeah, that's one way to do it.
Makes me think, in college we had this car that was a Red Bull car, and it would drive around tossing Red Bull to all the college students. And I think we need to bring this back, but call it like the toilet paper car.
Yeah.
Maybe a brand. That's what a TP brand could do, although they're not having problems selling it.
Yeah.
But they could tag or wrap one of their, some vehicle and just start tossing toilet paper out to people in large cities.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It'd
go viral.
Yeah. We looked on Amazon just out of curiosity yesterday, and it was like $40 for like a roll of or like a pack of 6 rolls of like just generic brand.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Well, we got plenty of leaves outside. We can always
That's true.
get creative.
There's always bidets.
Yes.
Amazon.com. So I want to take a second here to highlight one of our sponsors. We'll go ahead and say that they're the ones sponsoring this short series we're doing, even though, well, they're just our partner. So this is Cafe Caleb. This is a coffee that comes from Colombia. Some of you have heard of this coffee before. We have a partner in Colombia called Cristalinco. Awesome people. You've been, I've been. We've sent teams there and seen some really, truly awesome stuff happen in the remote jungles of the Amazon of Colombia. And we were just there a couple weeks, or probably about a month ago now. And we flew out into the jungle, rode motorcycles deep into the heart of the jungle and spread the gospel, and people are coming to faith. And it's a really cool partner. They're highly focused on unreached people groups, and they're constantly training missionaries that live there. So it's an amazing ministry partner that we have. But this coffee is really special because it not only tastes good. I mean, it's like really good coffee. I love coffee, and this is particularly really good. Speaking of, Aaron Lamb, this is your actual bag of coffee.
Yeah, so you need to come get this.
Pick it up at the church office. But this coffee actually keeps a door open for a tribe called the Arhuaco tribe. It's in a region of Colombia that is pretty hard to reach. They're pretty shut off to the gospel, but through our partnership with Cristalinco, and specifically with this coffee, the door has been open to spread the gospel. And so our purchasing of this coffee and you guys purchasing the coffee from us is literally keeping the door open to do evangelism in this remote tribe in the middle of Colombia. So buying this coffee is not just like, hey, we're like it's not a big money maker, I'll say that. But what it does is keep the door open for the gospel to be able to be delivered to this remote region of Colombia. So
That's awesome. You know, what's interesting for me, what stands out from when we were there a month ago, is how we were doing the training with some of those guys who are Christians there, and they were asking about prayer. And so I've been just wrestling through understanding prayer in the last couple of years in ways I had not thought through, for a few decades. And so I've been thinking through it myself anyway, but then they asked something along the lines of, what do we do when we pray and God doesn't answer, but then some of our other people in the tribe, they pray to their false god, and then there's an answer. And what do we tell people about our God who's alive and active and listening? What's the disconnect there? And in answering that question on the spot during that training, and walking through how our God is sovereign, our God is alive, He is listening, and He has a plan, and we can trust that plan. And you need to press in and continue to pray, and He'll eventually, if not immediately, He eventually demonstrates that His response to our prayers and His answers are ultimately good, and He'll reveal that to that community. And walking through that in much more detail, which we can always talk about another time if you're curious, that was surprisingly restorative for me to be able to articulate what I do believe about prayer without it deconstructing my faith in those kinds of things. Having their honest question of something that's very new helped me process my own stuff. So
yeah, that's good. I've noticed in Colombia in the jungle, and then where we go in Kenya and some other kind of like third world countries, there's a lot of practicing witch doctors, and that becomes like a central theme of like, you either go to the witch doctor to be healed, or you go to a church, or like you seek medicine through the church, So it's pretty interesting to see, like, when, because like there's this idea of like a lot of people might think, well, God's gonna heal me of whatever I have, but that's just the reality. Is that's not always God's plan.
Yeah. So
when people come to the church, they're thinking, I'm gonna, these people are telling me that that there's this creator, and He can heal, and so when they don't get healed, they turn back to what they used to know, which is like going to the witch doctor. And the crazy thing is, like, there's this actual like spiritual world with an active enemy who is siding with the witch doctors to, in some ways, he might help heal people through the witch doctors.
He's given that power by under God's authority to actually make things happen like that.
So it's a big opportunity for us to like not only teach them about Jesus and who He is, but about how He's like the ultimate healer, like more than physical things, more than like the like issues that we're struggling with. Like, He's the ultimate healer. Like, eternity is His, So yeah, it's good stuff.
It makes me think how, like, we hear that and we'll think, well, that happens in Colombia, they have witch doctors, and if you get saved, you're debating, do I turn to God or the witch doctor like I used to? And so we'll hear that and think, well, that's not us today. But what I have learned is we may not have a witch doctor who dresses a certain way and is in a certain hut, but we do have those same scenarios in which somebody who's been living a certain way, then they get saved, right? They place their faith in Christ, and they begin to feel this transforming work of the Spirit in their lives, and then they are torn. Do they continue to press in and know God more, or do they go back and run to all the other things that either medicated a scenario or a situation in their lives, or whatever it may be? And so we deal with the same stuff. That human nature is there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's really true. Yeah, we might get to a point at the end of this segment where we are able to take some questions. And so if any of that sort of stuff speaks to you guys, you have any questions about what we were just talking about, go ahead and send those in now.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe get to those at the end. So let's transition now. I'm curious because there's a lot of like new stuff going on in like the worship song world. So what's your favorite song right now?
That's a good question, because last week I had the chance to go to the Roadshow concert. I don't know what the real name is. I'd never gone to it here in town, but I went to that last Sunday, and we showed up super late. My running joke with my friends was Unspoken was there, and I was like, I'm ready for Unspoken to give a spoken word, but we missed them, and because we got there after that. But then at the end, Bethel did a bunch of worship songs, and one of the ones they did I'd never heard of before, but it's called God of Revival, and the way it was articulated was fantastic, both in the lyrics, and then I saw that Phil Wickham helped write it, and or led it. I'm not sure what his role is in writing that stuff, but I thought that makes a lot of sense, because it's so good. It describes very well how revival does work, in which God just pours out when He moves in the city, He moves in the people, and I was just praising and singing as loud as I could, and just like really into that. And I wish I recorded it, because it was sung by a guy named Dante, who that recording isn't anywhere else on YouTube, and I really liked the his voice on that song. So unfortunately, it's just buried in my memories until he does some sort of recording, if ever. But yeah, so God of Revival, cool. That one stands out the most.
Awesome. I'd say probably for me, so there was a song just released on, I think Friday, maybe Thursday, called Graves into Gardens. And actually, my buddy Brandon, I used to work with him down in South Carolina. He partnered with Elevation Church to release this song. So it was cool seeing my buddy on YouTube.
Yeah.
but
no. After last night on the YouTube, it was in the debate. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So on the YouTube, but it's a really like simple song, but it's got such a profound depth to it. And I mean, it's in the title, Graves into Gardens, like you're turning death into life. It's a song that it's one of those where it kind of like repeats, where it's like kind of like over and over, but it gets stuck in your head the rest of the day. So that one's really, really been on repeat in my house. And then there's one song, I mentioned it on stage last week, but it's called The Blessing. And that was with Carrie Jo partnering with her husband, Cody Carnes, and then Elevation Church. And that's another one that's just like, it's one of those songs where you can worship with it, like sing along with it. But if you just like sit there and dwell in the presence of God and just receive the song, like that's kind of the ultimate intent for the song. Her and the three of them, Stephen Furtick and Carrie Job and Cody Carnes were sitting together on a Thursday, and they were just kind of like, singing through some stuff. They get together, I think, every now and then, and they were just kind of worshiping together. And the Lord started revealing this blessing for the church to them. And they were able to put kind of lyric and melody together. And that Sunday, they led the song on stage. And it was just, they that's what's on YouTube, is that live song.
Oh, really?
They sang.
I saw that. I didn't realize that's what that was.
Yeah. So it's, it's like 2-day turnaround, but it wasn't like this big, like, putting this big production together and performing it. It was like the Lord revealed it to them on Thursday, and on Sunday they were just like pouring their heart out to the church. And it's a really awesome song to just like sit there, posture your heart towards receiving, and just like bask in the presence of God. So it was good stuff.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, as we're sharing here, I think it would be good for us to just talk a little bit about what God's up to right now, and not that we fully understand the mind of God, but as followers of Christ, He does call us to align our lives with Him and to walk walk by the Spirit. And so, with this global outbreak, I guess is the best way to describe it at this point, that really piques my curiosity with what God is up to right now, because this kind of thing is on one hand, when you watch news articles or read about it, you'll find yourself hearing the statistics and the facts and the interpretations from those who, they may not be Christians, and they're just giving the science breakdown and stuff like that, which is fine. All that stuff is good for us to know. But as a Christian, as a pastor, as somebody who is living right now and reading Scripture, you find yourself starting to ask, well, what is God up to? Because this is something really unique. Could you ask questions like, could this be divine, or even how could this be divinely used by God and allowed by God to occur? Because this is not isolated to one little tribe or even one country, but around the world. This is starting to move. And so as I've been thinking about this and looking at the U.S. specifically, although now this is occurring around the world, there's three unique areas that have all been stripped from us. One is the sports. One is our health is in a predicament, right? And then the other one would be financial challenges there too. And so money and health and sports, those three things are all major, I'll call idols. They're big idols in American society. They've all been taken from us. Yeah. And when I think about that, it catches my attention with what is the Lord up to. And so I know for many of us, we're praying that this ends. We're praying for healing. We don't want to see anybody die from this. We don't want to see people infected with this. We totally get that. And so that is true to our hearts. I think the challenge for me, and a question I'm asking myself and I want to ask people, is, are you praying for healing just so you can go back to your fun? Or are you praying for healing and to kind of a better spiritual alternative, and that is to surrender yourself to God in a greater way? Because if all we want to do is get back to our games and get back to full health and get back to as much money as we can possibly have, then I think we're missing the point. And perhaps God's getting our attention through this in ways that are more profound than what you'll see on the news and what you may hear in certain sermons. And so how should we respond in this? I think at the end of the day, we need to recalibrate the direction of our lives. We need to recalibrate the thoughts of our mind. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday at the end of the message. I encourage all of us to stay in the Word and to stay in prayer and to stay in community. And I want to talk through what that looks like a little bit, because I know several of you talked about this in your groups, but let's just, in the Word, I would encourage you all to have some sort of Bible reading plan here. Even we've talked about this at the beginning of every year, but right now is a very unique season. Perhaps you hit a lull. What are we, 10 weeks in or so into the year? So you may have found yourself not really sticking to something that's working well for you. Now's a great chance to pick up something new. So, whether it's a gospel account, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or another one of the books in the New Testament, I encourage you to grab one of those and start to read through that every day and allow your heart to align with the Lord, particularly because we're inundated with so much through news and social media news and social media commentary, that you find yourself, if you're not careful, you will digest far more content that could be toxic to you, at least to the vibrancy of your soul and to your joy. And so we got to make sure we fill it with God's Word. And so pick something with that. And then with prayer, I encourage all of us to write out prayers right now. It'd be far too easy to just toss a prayer out. God protect us. God help us not to be sick. Or if we are sick, God heal us. And then move on. But I think it's important for us to be far more intentional, and writing out prayers to me is always intentional, and disciplining ourselves with that. Everyone's schedule is a little different right now, maybe a little wonky, but as much as we all know we're not going to be going out to different restaurants like we are, or gathering like we have been, or going to all these different sport activities. Half the population is mourning that they don't get to watch March Madness right now. And so with that, God has given you a chance to have extra time that you were going to dedicate to something enjoyable, but maybe not spiritually meaningful. Yeah. And so this is a chance for you to dive in. We have time, and we've been stripped of all these other things. We have time to dedicate to prayer like no other. If you've been forced at home, well, you have all this time not commuting that you can pray. I know you can pray while you're driving, but now you can pray by writing it, which you should not do if you're driving. So that's reading the Word, that's prayer, and then lastly is community, and that's probably the tougher part because we're supposed to be very careful right now, and we should be. We don't want to pass this on to other people and all that stuff. Social distancing. That's what they say. I'm just saying, don't social distance shame me. Whatever that may look like, I don't know, but I might be the first to use that phrase. Everything is shamed right now. Yeah. I want to encourage us with community to just that one's just tougher, but God has given us the methods through social media to connect with people, and usually that's used to just either feel better about yourself or feel worse about yourself, depending on what you may be viewing. But it's also now is a unique chance for us to message one another or do FaceTime or Facebook video or Skyping or Zooming or Google video, all that kind of stuff. And there's a great opportunity right now to leverage some of that technology that maybe it has historically messed with you and not prompted that stuff. So if you may have family or friends who are nearby and you guys are spending time with one another in a safe way, and if that's the case, just continue to use that, sure, for fun and catching up, but really use that for meaningful and substantive conversations, because they're limited right now. We don't get to gather the way we normally do.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's really important in a time like this. I mean, a lot of our jobs are kind of saying, hey, work from home this week or this, until further notice. And it's really important for us to not create rhythms of like complacency where we're not being intentional with our walk with Christ or our relationships with other people. It's really easy to like dedicate the time gaps that we have in our day to to media or whatever it is. It's really important for us to have like spiritual goals. A lot of people that I talk to say that they have like ebbs and flows, and it's been true in my life too, of being really strong in your quiet time with the Lord. So this is an awesome opportunity to say, hey, I've got a little bit of extra time at home. I'm going to really focus in over the next 3 weeks on being intentional with my quiet time. I'm going to take 20 minutes or an hour out of my day during this time block, and I'm going to be really intentional in my relationship with Christ and scripture studying and stuff like that. Yeah. It's a huge opportunity for us to grow. It could go either way. It could be like, hey, you've got more free time to enjoy your hobbies and to, play games and watch TV, and like none of those things are bad. But it's like, hey, I could be giving all of my extra time to this stuff, or I could be spending some of that extra time with the Lord and communicating with other believers. Because, like you said, we have the tools now to be able to communicate with other believers in our region and around the world, really. And so it's a cool opportunity. It's like I can't think of the passage off the top of my head, but how God works all things together for the good of those who trust Him and work according to His purpose. So whether God designed this virus or not, we can use the opportunities of this virus to grow spiritually.
Sure. Yeah. So our charge is to be intentional with this. Try not to let yourself binge watch the entire Marvel movie series.
At least not in one day.
Yeah, at least not in one day. I don't know if that's possible. I think it takes 2 full days. With you being awake the entire time. But if you can watch, if you can watch the Marvel series in 2 days, well, it takes 3 days to read the entire Bible, and so I guess it's like if you're gonna watch the movies, read the entire Bible, then you can totally watch the movies. If you're gonna watch them all. I think I'll leave us with this on this topic, and then we got a couple other lighter things to talk through. Psalm 121 says this. It's 8 verses. I encourage you all to read it today. It says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. He will not let your foot be moved, and he who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. Now, that's a great psalm in the midst of feeling a heightened sense of panic and uncertainty.
Yeah.
So I want to read this quote. I read last night. I read it really late, and I haven't reread it since then. So we'll see if it still makes sense. It's by this guy named B.B. Warfield, and he lived about 100 years ago. In fact, we would have just honored his 99th year since passing away. But he was a theologian. He had a beard, right? Old school guy, right?
Always trust a guy with a beard.
I know. And so he says, in the infinite wisdom of the Lord of all the earth, each event falls with exact precision into its proper place in the unfolding of his divine plan. Nothing, however small, however strange, occurs without his ordering or without its particular fitness for its place in the working out of his purpose. And the end of all shall be the manifestation of his glory and the accumulation of his praise. That's a good way to summarize this topic. But because this topic leads into a pretty intense prepping kind of feel, I think a good follow-up question is, Neil, what is your weapon of choice in a zombie apocalypse?
That's a really good question.
Is that a good question?
I mean, it's a question. It's a question.
Man, that's deep.
So it's like it's hard to say because I don't watch all the zombie movies, so I can't tell you off the top of my head like what kills a zombie.
That's true. I kind of don't know. And every movie is different.
Yeah.
What kills them? Yeah.
So it's like they're the living dead is how they're described.
True.
Right. So I went to an arcade a few weeks ago, and they had the Walking Dead arcade game, and on there they had crossbows. So, but for me, it's hard to think like how can a crossbow kill a zombie, but a gun can't?
Yeah.
So, I would probably say
there's probably some deep reason why.
That's true.
Yeah, you know, somebody's come up with a reason.
Yeah. I wonder any Walking Dead fans out there can tell us why. But I'm thinking more of like, what's something that's gonna like hold them back temporarily so I can get out of there, you know?
A bazooka.
Yeah, something like a bazooka or like a cannon, but it needs to be like a rapid fire cannon.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we're allowed to invent weapons for this question, but
I think so.
I would.
Because zombies don't exist yet.
Yeah. Okay, so I would invent a rapid fire cannon. So it shoots like, you know, full size cannonballs, and it's something it'll push them back and give me enough time to flee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder if anyone's tried those giant sound like sending satellite things. You know, maybe that just makes them explode. If so, that would be a good weapon too.
That's true.
Yeah. And a little easier than rapid fire cannons.
That's true.
But good. Yeah. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Nice.
How about one last question?
Sure.
Best meal you've ever had?
Now that is a good question. that evokes a deep sense of all my senses. I'd actually have to think about this. I hadn't thought. So I'll just go with the best meal that comes to the top of my head.
Sure.
In the next 3 seconds. Okay. So you guys can't have this because it doesn't exist anymore. But in Charlottesville, about 6 months ago, Lynn and I went to this barbecue place down in Belmont, and that day we went, we just asked them what's good, and they were telling us some stuff. And so I got this burger that had brisket on top and a bunch of other elements, but those were the 2 types of meat with it. And then a couple really tasty sides. But it was one of the best burgers I've ever had.
Wow.
It was amazing. Lynn got something else. She was really sad, and she said, "Oh, let's get this burger next time." And next time we go down. So I don't know, a month later or so, we drive down there, all excited. We even parked. I was working on paying to park there, and she's inside. She comes out and she's like, "It's a Mexican restaurant now."
What?
Like, what? So we look it up, and we found a conversation on Reddit that helped us discover what had happened.
Oh,
I guess the owners, they are pregnant. They moved back to North Carolina, and I was like, "Man, I'm gonna drive down there, find them, and be like, can you make me this hamburger just one more time? Because if I knew that was the last one I was ever gonna have, I would have ordered more and frozen them." I was like, what? So it's this lingering burger we had once, can never have again.
Was this like was it like Eastern Carolina barbecue? Because that's a big debate. Are you an Eastern Carolina guy? Texas, Kansas City.
Yeah, I know that is a debate. I don't really. I do know some of the distinctions, but I just like good barbecue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't necessarily need the like vinegar based or what's the other one?
There's like sweet, savory.
Yeah. Like
just any of them.
I just like stuff that's been cooked right.
I see.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I'm Eastern Carolina all the way.
Yeah.
Vinegar based.
Yeah.
It's just got that taste. I can't do sweet barbecue. It's like I'm having dessert and dinner at the same time, and I just like to separate them a little bit.
Nice.
But yeah, my favorite meal, I'm thinking like, so I've got my favorite region, which is the Low Country. South Carolina. You got like into Georgia. You got Low Country boils. You've got the shrimp and grits. You've got like pimento cheese, that kind of stuff. So I think it's hard to say my exact favorite meal, because there's 2 parts to it. There's the atmosphere and there's the taste, and like I like them to both be synced up, obviously. But there's one restaurant specifically called Fleet Landing that's like atmosphere all the way. They have good food, but my favorite food would probably be there's this one place called Page's Okra Grill in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. They've got this fried green tomato and pimento cheese BLT, and it's just out of this world. I mean, it's a big sandwich. Like you got to squeeze it to eat it.
Yeah.
And oh man, like you get a side of mac and cheese, some fried okra. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I'll keep that in mind. Where's that again? For everyone who's watching.
Mount Pleasant,
which may
South
be
Carolina.
one person. My mom. Mount Pleasant.
Adam's mom. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. If you ever go there.
Oh yeah, outside of Charleston.
Yeah.
Right down there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Right in Charleston. Yep. So it's I don't know. We might not be able to go for another year or so, but.
Well, I was thinking we were supposed to go down there in a month.
Yeah.
But that may get canceled.
That's true.
There's a big church conference down there.
Yeah.
But everything's changing. Well, good. You have anything else you want to say?
I've got nothing else I want to say.
Cool. Well, that's
tuning in.
everything we have. Yeah. You guys have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow if we are here.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in.